Crafting your ideal work environment. Tips for creating job satisfaction. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today I've got a great video on how to craft your ideal work environment. And it's not gonna happen like that, but when you get a direction, it can be exciting and it's something you could feel good about. Again, my name's Richardson. I'm a coach here at Life on Your Terms, and I make these videos here so you can do exactly that. You can live a life on your terms. So, crafting your ideal work environment, tips for creating a job satisfaction. So I have a 4-step framework that I'm gonna break down today that I think is helpful in any problem in life. I use it in my coaching, I use it in my personal life, and I'm gonna use it on this video today because I truly believe that it can solve almost any problem. So what are those 4 steps? Well, the first and the second, I'm gonna combine these two in this video, is to stabilize and visualize. Now, what are those, you may ask? Well, stabilization, the way I see it, is defining where you are at specifically. So the first thing with creating your ideal work environment related to stabilization is to identify which is most important related to your ideal work environment. So what I mean by that is work-life balance. And with work-life balance, I would encourage you to see it as more of work-life integration. Now with smartphones and devices, we are so interconnected with our jobs. There's no more work-life balance. They are no longer separate. They are now integrated. And how do you want that to look for you? So that's one area you could look. The next area you could look is company culture. For example, I've worked at companies before where managers have these high expectations that everybody is busy at all times, but then you look at them and they're just standing and talking, and they will get very upset if you do the same. So there's this discrepancy in expectations, which leads to a terrible workplace culture. So maybe that's the change you want to make. Or they have high expectations of turnaround times, but then they can't get the employee of the month up for 3 months. So it's a discrepancy of expectations, and it creates a terrible culture. Now, there's a lot of different other problems that go into company culture, but those are a few examples, and maybe that's some changes that you want to look at making. Now, the third change you may want to look at making, or what's important to you, is career growth opportunities. Maybe you feel like you're stuck or you're stagnant, and that's totally okay, but you want more growth opportunities. So maybe you want changes in that area for your work environment. So there's a lot of different areas that you can look at creating and crafting your ideal work environment. So that's why it's so important to stabilize, to be able to look at and define what is important to you. You also need to be able to define and identify what you want to change. So I know these are interconnected, but when you look at some of those 3 areas, what are some improvements that you want to make within yourself and within the company? Because it truly is a group effort and direction. It's not just them, or it's not just you. It's a team thing when in a work environment to make those changes. So once you do those things, identify what is most important that you want to change, and then looking at what is most important overall in your work environment, whether it's work-life balance, career growth opportunities, or company culture, stuff like that. And looking at all those things and be able to look at where you want to go. Well, that leads us to visualization. Whereas you want to visualize, what does amazing look like 12 months from now? What does amazing look like 5 years from now? And I would encourage you to, as you go through these things, to write them down, because it's going to create a very clear vision. And when you have that vision, you have something to strive towards. And so once you visualize what does amazing look like 12 months from now, you can start thinking, the gears start turning. You're like, okay, these are the changes I want to make. This is what amazing look like. I feel this way. And once you write that out, you get a really clear vision. Once you get that really clear vision, that moves us to the 3rd step of the framework, which is strategize on how you want to make it happen. Because you've stabilized, you have identified, you've defined where you're at, what changes you want to make, and what's important to you. Once you've done that, you're able to visualize and craft a vision. Once you have this vision crafted, you're able to then create a plan and strategy to make it happen. And however you make that plan is completely up to you. I'm going to give you a few recommendations. And again, throughout all this stuff, this is just my personal opinion, and it's what's worked for me. So maybe you won't agree, and that's okay. But this is how I see it, and hopefully it can be helpful to you. So one thing I recommend doing during your strategy is to create open and transparent communication with your team. Whether you're at the bottom or you're at the top, be open and be transparent. Now, obviously, be tactful and be respectful with it, but I truly believe that open and honest communication is the quickest way to the end goal. So the best way you could start doing this is, instead of being open and honest and going to talk about others' things to them, go to your boss and say, hey, is there any improvements I can make? And ask the question on top of that, what would you tell me if you knew I wouldn't get upset? A lot of people will tell you a lot more than you'd think, because sometimes we get blind spots, and that's okay. That's why you have open and transparent communication, and that can kind of craft a great work environment where you feel good about what you are doing and your coworkers and stuff. So that's one improvement I could suggest making. Now, to make changes, you cannot ask for what you do not give. And I kind of just applied that. So you can't ask for someone to be open and honest and then not do it yourself. So for example, you can't ask someone to receive feedback and take that if you can't do that yourself. So another example is trust. If you want to be more trusted doing things, you need to extend trust to those on your team in any way you can, because people feel good about when they feel trusted, and they'll extend that back to you. It's the norm of reciprocity in human nature. When we extend someone something or do something for someone, they want to do it back for us. So I would encourage you to employ that method with giving before you ask. Now, the third thing I can recommend in your strategy is to encourage a culture of appreciation and recognition for achievements. So I would like you to get into a habit of, when you think about something someone did, so let's say they have an awesome achievement, and you think about, like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I would encourage you to just say that to the person, because they're gonna feel good about saying it and you're thinking it, so it's genuine. So I'd encourage you to increase that culture of appreciation and recognition for everyone, and it'll kind of become contagious. Now, that's the third step. You want to create a strategy, create a plan on how to create and craft that ideal work environment. From there, the last step is execution. We need to just execute on the plan we created, and sometimes that can be difficult. We can do all this planning and all this thinking, but then when it comes time for execution, people don't get it done. And I'm guilty of it too. So with that, you need to be able to execute. And a great way to think about executing on the changes that you want to implement is think about what barriers are going to come up for you along the way. What uncomfortability is going to come up when you preach for open and honest communication? Or what uncomfortability is going to come up when you want to have that one-on-one conversation with your boss about more work growth opportunities? Think about all of those things, and then identify how you're going to react to those barriers can help you execute better. Now, I'm going to give you 3 more tips on execution that I think are really important, that'll work in any of your plans that you may have. I would encourage you to do open communication, and I already hammered that in the last point. I would encourage you to do culture improvement. Again, I already hammered that in the last point, but the most important, and I think truly the key to any change that you want to make, is to lead by example. If you want to make a change of open and honest communication, you got to lead by example. If you want to make a change of company culture, you got to lead by example, because then once you lead by example, you can back up your shit, and then you can have a conversation with a manager about a change you want to make, whatever it is. Hey, I want to make this change, or you don't need to come at it from that angle, but hey, do you have time for a conversation? I have a change that I think we could implement that could benefit the company. That'd be a great line, because they'll love it. They're all about benefiting the company. And if you come from that angle, most people won't be too upset about having that conversation. So lead by example. And then finally, seek feedback on what you do. So again, as I talked earlier, you need to have people be open and honest with you. So again, I would encourage you to seek feedback after you tried to execute upon your plan. And throughout this, you may need to change jobs. There is a possibility that the job you are at is not conducive to the work environment you want. So with that, it may be important to look at another career job, and that's why I brought up what does amazing look like 5 years from now, because it may be a 5-year plan to get out your current job and get that ideal work environment.